to will donate their items. It goes through an acquisition committee, so multiple people are looking at these objects, seeing the potential for our collections, for exhibits, for research, etc. After that is formally approved, we get those items, we bring them here, and then we formally accession them. That means that these items now legally become the field museums. And once those are signed, we start what we call processing. Processing includes taking photos, descriptions, measurements, and box making. And after all of those are done and all of the relevant documents are scanned and signed, as well as our correspondence, so anything with emails, letters, once those are all scanned, put that into our database, and then print them all out, file them, and hand all the items to our collection managers. So that is what we do here at the Field Museum as registrars. I'll hand it off to Christina to talk about some of the other things.
Yeah, so I just want to point out an example, since these are taking up so much table space, an example of a commissioned object would be these 4 birds here that we're commissioned for our upcoming Africa Egypt project that I mentioned I'm a part of. And they're commissioned by our curator because he specializes in the time period of Great Zimbabwe, and that's an area of research that is of some importance to him. And so he had a contemporary artist create these replicas with permission from the places that own the originals to have them created for our exhibit. And so they're kind of this interesting mix of their contemporary replicas, but they're representing pieces that are much older. It's kind of like a shared space. So hopefully if you come back in a few years when we have our new Africa Egypt gallery open, you'll be able to see these pieces on display with at least 2 others that we have here already. One other bird that we have at the museum. I think his goal is to have all 8 of them by the end of this, and us in registers are like, oh no, because it's a lot of work to get these. They're coming to us from Zimbabwe and via South Africa.
Yep. We do, as with our new team in anthropology, we try our very best to do community collaborative work, and that's one element to our donations that we try to keep in mind of. For example, we have these really fun birds. This is just some of them. So these are little figurines from a book. What was it? Her name is Cynthia Wiles. She's white, but she commissions different, I think, Oaxacan artists to create these characters for her bilingual books. So we've done multiple donations with her, and everything that we have, she has collaborated with the community, both in Mexico and here in Chicago as well. You are planning a fun program next year.
Coming up next year in June, the Association of American Librarian Association is meeting here in Chicago again, and Cynthia Weil is coming, and she's going to speak to. It's going to be an event that is open to first to the librarians that are part of that conference. But we did secure a venue that's a little bit larger. That'll be will allow some members of the public to join. And so Cynthia will be able to talk about her experience collaborating with these Oaxacan artists that she's having create these pieces. And then when she finishes her book, she reaches out and she's like, I have this next set of art pieces like ready to go for you guys. Are you interested? And so for us, this is so valuable because it's contemporary artists, contemporary works, but it's also one where she's collecting the names of the artists. So it's not just here's works that I purchased from a market. She actually knows who's creating the pieces. So I actually worked on an event like this a couple years ago, and that's when she revealed that her next project was this birds playing musical instruments project. So I'm excited to see what she is working on next when I work that event. But that is something that's so important when we're bringing in collections to the museum, is the information that goes with it is just as valuable. And so that matters to us a lot, and we want to know who made the piece, and that's why it's fun to do commissions as well. So then we know who made the piece, and we know that the money is going directly to the artist then as well.
Yeah. Another thing for community engagement is just hiring Native people, hiring Indigenous people to look at their stuff. I'm Native, if you didn't guess. I'm Navajo, I'm from Tuba City, Arizona. And I was hired on as a fellow, underneath the same grant. So I came in to bring my Indigenous knowledge into the institution through collections, conservation, and registration. And I really like registration because we were the first point of contact. There has been multiple times where I have pointed out certain Navajo pieces and objects to be given back to the Navajo Nation before it was even in the museum or talking about in our acquisitions committee. So having that knowledge into the museum from different communities is really important. And when I first got hired onto this registration role at the beginning of the year, I was responsible for a new accession filled with Southwest items, Northwest Coast, a little bit of Eastern things. And one of the projects that I have been working on is actually on this table. So you guys can gather around over here. Be a little careful. So I come from a family of beaders, probably not in the sense that you guys are familiar with. A lot of the jewelry like this, like the old-fashioned ones, is what my family members make and what I have made when I was younger. My grandparents loved child labor, free child labor, so they always hired me to bead with them. And so I'm very familiar with the materials, and when I was really excited when I went to the donor's house to look at these items and to start packaging them and put them into the museum, because the Field Museum doesn't have a lot of necklaces or like jewelry from the Southwest. So I was really happy to see all of these, and when they actually got into the museum and I was at the point of processing them, so I was writing the descriptions, the materials, and taking photographs, I realized on day one that some of these are not real turquoise. So I like to play this game. Which ones do you think are not real and which ones are real? So we'll go with this one first. You want real or not real?
Not real.
Not real? Real or not real?
Real.
I know I'm going really fast.
It's not. Real.
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 No.
I'm hearing more real.
Not real.
That one looks fake. The next
That
one.
one you said real? This one?
Yeah.
Not real.
Not real.
Fake. What about this one?
Real.
Real?
Real.
Okay, this one's not turquoise.
Real.
Real.
Real? What do you think?
Come on, Melissa.
I'm trying to think.
Yeah, we'll find out. And then there's this last one over here. I can't reach it. Fake.
Fake.
This one's a lot tinier.
Real.
Real.
Real? Okay. So I'm gonna go over here. So this one, real. This is turquoise and jet with seashell. This is also turquoise with seashell, so that's real. This is fake. And these little tiny fetishes, there are of like some ducks, raccoons, birds, tadpoles, frogs, turtles. They're really cool, but it's a dyed rock, which is pretty common nowadays. I am saying real or fake, but that does not mean that it's not indigenous made. So I'm just talking about the material specifically, which is very important because when we label items, we use a chemical called B72, and it's an adhesive with acetone in it, which can cause discoloration. So we don't want to put that on turquoise, and especially if these were plastic, that would eat up on it and damage the material. So this one I also think is dyed rock. I still have to do some little fun things. This one is glass, but I don't think it's turquoise either. So you guys got that one wrong. This one is real. So this is also glass beads, but this actually has turquoise dust shavings inside of it. I still don't know the material for the yellow birds yet. I'm in consultation with my grandma. So we'll see. And this one, I suspected was coral because we have a lot of coral in the Southwest too. But was a little skeptical because whenever you look into it, you can see some of these beads that are stuck together, which means it's glass. Which I should have guessed. The first thing I didn't do though was shine light underneath it, and whenever it like refracts, it gets so much brighter. But coral is a solid piece, so it wouldn't have done that, and the pieces are too small anyway, so I was a little skeptical until I did two different testings. One was Raman spectroscopy, which is a surface level testing of a light microscope. So it shines down a prism, and at the very tip of that prism, it touches the object, and whatever light gets bounced back, it turns it into a light graph, and we compare that graph in our database of the different materials that have done that same reaction, and that's how we decide what the material is. Unfortunately, a lot of these are polished really, really well, which means that light reflects back a lot, and some of these had inconsistent readings or unidentifiable readings. So the second test I did was PXRF, which is a pedestral type of testing, and that does an x-ray. It's like a small x-ray that goes into the material without causing any damage. And that will tell you the elements that are inside of the material, and then you just compare and contrast to the amount of elements in that area to the material that you are looking at. So I have to do a bunch of research to look at all of the elements that I have inside of the rocks and compare it to turquoise or other rocks that are in the area. So that's going to be fun. And I'm doing an informal lecture on it for our anthropology department so they can see that I started doing this testing in February. I figured out in one day which one was real or not and the materials, but I love to prove myself right and to others, and I want people to know that you should have indigenous people into the museums so you don't have to waste an entire year doing testing when it could be done in a day. So not only are we saving time and money, but we're also just caring for the objects as soon as possible. The same thing goes for basket making. I am not quite familiar with it, but I did talk to a lot of Northwest Coast people through one of our knowledge exchanges. They went and talked through a bunch of tools and baskets, and I read up on a lot of it while doing this donation. And whenever we did have other Native people come in, I always asked them about the baskets, and I'm like, do you think this is yours? So I was told that this entire donation was all Native made, and when you look at this basket, it doesn't look Native at all, at least here in the US, right? So to me it looks like a steamer rice basket. And being a registrar, you don't need a specific like region you need to know a lot about. But it does help a little bit. But working in this new position, I have been working with all throughout the world, so I'm learning a lot. But this is a steamer basket, and after a really, really long time on researching, because it turns out even in Asia, they don't have a lot of these baskets in their collection. So I had to go through a collections database that had multiple museums' collections inside of it, and went through pages of baskets to try to find a similar technique that was used. And I found out this is from a mountain tribe in Thailand called Atna. And in that database, there was only 3 other baskets that were very similar, but older than this one. So our donor labeled this as Haida, which kind of makes sense, I guess, because they do a lot of the star beginning, and as you guys know, starting the basket is really important. It tells you a lot as well as finishing it. But this basket in particular is finished very weirdly because it wraps inside of the walls. So it's sewn in on this base and then wrapped inside and sewn on the other side, which is not very typical for North American like tribes, you know? So that's important knowledge to know, is how we typically start our baskets. Another thing on materials that I think is very important, because a bunch of anthropologists, a bunch of archaeologists didn't know how to record data or talk about these items. So a lot of our collections are very, very bare. So the best thing that we know about some of these objects is like, hey, that's a basket. I don't know where, but it's a basket. And so I decided when I started working this job is to try to incorporate my indigenous values, I guess, into my workflow. So in this one in particular, I knew the materials right away because of the smell. And typically a lot of people don't know about you know, the type of materials that are used in baskets. So if you guys can smell this if you want. And whenever, yeah, right? It's sweetgrass. When I had my other colleagues come up and smell it, they were like, I don't know what that is. And I was like, that could have, if I wasn't here, that wouldn't have been recorded into our collection database, right? They would have just named it as a vegetal material. But I know that as a native, if I want to look at sweetgrass items, I need to put that into our database. And so I was thinking, it's good, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I knew that I wanted to preserve the smell. I'm thinking 50, 100, maybe even 500 years later, I want to make sure that it's still recognizable, that these items, even if our database goes down, something happens, somebody decides to take it off, that is still associated with the item, the smell of it, which I think is really important. And I try to think about the object as much as I can, and as a Native person who wants to look at all of this collection, I want to know all of these things and making sure that it's recorded as much as possible. So not only have I been incorporating that into my workflow, but even my coworkers are starting to think about how they need to look at items. So another thing that I like to do is making sure that everything is upright, especially with pottery and baskets, because that's typically how they are stored. One of the first personal projects that I've done was go through all of the Navajo collection and reorganize everything, because baskets were upside down, orientation was wrong, certain things were with certain things that should not be together, bundles were not bundled. So I had a fun time. And with pottery, I like to make sure they're upright. We do really fun things with housing. So with this one, I had a complicated box. You guys can come around if you want. This is Mata Ortiz. So this is in Mexico, in Chihuahua. They do a lot of the black on black pottery. That's kind of where it was rejuvenated from a certain family. So this black on black piece is super normal. And the fun thing about a bunch of Southwest pottery is, like, we love having really, really small bases that is kind of scary to keep upright. And usually there's a ring. So the same thing is on this one. It is super tiny. All of the weight is on top. So whenever you put it down, just as normal like this, oh gosh, it still tips. It still tips. It's very scary. So whenever we're housing items, we want to make sure that it is stable. I wanted to do these little 4 tri rods on the top to make sure it was all good, but then I wouldn't be able to grab the base as well as I could, because I'm grabbing it from the lip, and that is very dangerous. It could slip out. So the best way I decided to do that was give it a little seatbelt. I did really fun math, and I made these little tiny hooks as well on on the tri wrap, and then I just seatbelt it in. So now it is stable this way and it doesn't move. And my coworker, she's planning on working on the Monterey pottery over here. This little jackrabbit, as you can see, he is laying down because he is not balanced. And if possibly, in theory, if I was not here, if we didn't have natives in there, the best way to store that would be laying it down. But I don't think that's how he wants to be. So she's gonna have a really fun time trying to keep him upright. So that's what she's been trying to do for now, because she is influenced by the way that I handle our objects and taking care of them. But I think she's gonna have a fun time. As long as he's standing upright, we get a lot. We talk to Christina a lot actually because she's also a master at housing. She taught us how to do the blue rod, the seatbelt, yeah, the seatbelt, and then those tri rods. So like this is another thing too. This basket is Venezuelan. They're made from a community. I forgot their name, but this basket in particular is made by men instead of women. So that was really interesting to learn. And it's specifically this type of basket. Like women make other baskets, but they don't make this one, only men make it. We had this one out for our cats exhibit. If you guys ever saw the ads for that, we did what we call last call events. So we brought all of our cat theme items and we just show them to the public because there's little tiny cats on here. But typically this, I've seen baskets stored upside down, like I said, and this rim is wider than the base, so it would like make sense in the Western institutional way of thinking. But baskets are meant to be upright, you know? So she decided to house this, and she made a really intricate base to keep it stable and a lid so you can actually see inside of it. That's something that we're doing a lot, is making sure that items have lids so they can see. And I use a lot of muslin as well as an organic material to do a bunch of housing as well if I don't want to put it into a box. So that's really fun. That's kind of my spiel of this room. In the indigenous perspective, in my native perspective, the way that I have been working on things, we do have stories for most of these items here, and we have about 5 minutes before we go into oversize. Did you guys have anything you want to learn?
Or any questions
Or
for
any questions?
either of us, or is it about?
What's your oldest piece in this room?
The oldest piece in this room, I want to say it's on that top room, on that top one, or it might be those rocks. Are they still in here? They might have left. So just because I say new to the museum doesn't mean that it came in like this year. We have items in here that have been in this room since it was first built. And in the old cataloging room, those were also switched into here because the CRC was actually built in like the early 2000s.
It's probably, we have some coins over here.
That's true,
Probably
those
those
old
coins.
Japanese coins. So
That's been yeah, I was like, it's a weird mix because like we do have a policy that we don't take anything that's over 100 years old. So like antiquities are kind of off the table. With pretty much zero exceptions, unless there's like really good documentation on where it's been and how how it was acquired.
okay,
But for the most part,
you guys can look
what
over
we're
here.
collecting is more modern pieces, so it just kind of depends on what the donation is, and we factor that in. It's like if we already have a bunch from that time period or from that place, you know, maybe that's not a good fit for us anymore. But if it's one where we have stuff from like the 50s, but we don't have anything that's from like the 2000s or something. Oh, maybe we do want to bring that in so you can show the continuation of that art over time. Because I think unfortunately there's like that long history of, or like there's the early history for museums of a lot of the collecting was done as like, oh, these cultures are going to disappear, so we gotta get everything that we can, and that's not the case. And so the collecting from that time frame is a snapshot in time. It doesn't show the continuation of that culture, and that those people are still here, still around, still producing art and items.
historical value
we aim
or
to try to
monetary
fix
value.
that in our current collecting practices.
Especially during like World War I when there was a lot of looting at museums. Like during war, after people raided certain towns, they would just take their things. And that became unlawful.
Yeah. Earlier than what it should be.
Yeah, a lot later than it should
Yeah,
be.
like,
Yeah.
not soon enough.
Not soon enough.
Yeah, like, I think those are probably the oldest,
Yeah.
some of the oldest for sure.
Yeah, I have a Cheyenne TP model over here too. So this was commissioned for one of for the Asian Americas Hall, but then got installed for the new exhibit. So this was, I'm still learning a little bit about it, but I took new photos for it because it was super old. They like put sand around it, and you can still see like the Victorian wallpaper with like palm leaves in the back of it. Which is kind of funny. They also had it prop wrong too. So I just noticed that today. Here, let me get this out of the way. This is my desk. But the little flaps, they had it like tucked in, which was kind of funny. They didn't have the supporting holes up here too. And this is now permanently onto a board, which makes it like it's a model, so it's based off of a real teepee from what was his name? Great. Did I write it down? No, from Glad Road. I don't know anything about it. There's nothing in our database. I still need to look into our archives to figure out the entire story because nobody really knows. So, this is one of the objects that didn't have any information on it. So while I was taking new photographs, I also updated the descriptions, the measurements, and the materials. So that's just something I like to do. It's not standard. Usually we just take the pictures and then we put it back. But I want to make sure that people can actually see it.
Yeah, it just kind of depends. So, like, one of the things that I'm working on is I'm housing a lot of the Egypt collections that haven't been housed, which is pretty much all of it.
Yeah.
And so it's one where I made the decision with my collection manager for that is when I am housing the objects, I'm going to go ahead and take the time to measure the objects and actually weigh the objects as well. Just because most of that information does not exist in our database yet. So it's like, well, I already have it out. I might as well go ahead and at least do that portion of it and get that information in there. So that, especially when it comes to when it's super helpful when the dimensions of an object are already in the database, and you can share those dimensions with exhibitions for their planning purposes. And yes, will they come down and do their own measurements when it comes time to actually create analysis and spaces? Yes, but like, they already have a general idea to go off of before they, like, before. Take a picture of the bench, turn around, take a picture. Like, before, you know, coming back to the after, they have an idea.
Or like this, like the birds.
Before it is, going into it, would be helpful for that as well.
Okay, any more questions? Nope. Okay, let's get out of here. It's open. Bless you.
Moving through the room, it's easy.